Aaron, you finally got a reply from Elon Musk. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, well,
the richest man in the world.
Yeah. So this happened this week where Elon Musk came out with some criticism of Bellingcat, and he did it in the context of questioning their findings about the mass shooter in Allen, Texas. They found some chat or some online profile where the shooter had some white supremacist tattoos and expressed some white supremacist beliefs. And because Bellingcat was the one saying this, Elon Musk expressed skepticism and pointed out that Bellingcat does psyops.
Obviously, people were killed, but it was, I think, incorrectly ascribed to be a white supremacist action.
I couldn't really even follow exactly what it was you were trying to express there, so that's in part why I was curious.
I'm saying that I thought the ascribing it to white supremacy was bullshit.
Okay.
And that the information for that came from an obscure Russian website and was somehow magically found by Bellingcat, which is a company that does psyops.
And there's no proof, by the way, that he was not.
There's no. I would say that there's no proof that he is.
And that's a debate you want to get into on Twitter?
Yes. Because we should not be ascribing things to white supremacy if it's false.
All right, so I think Elon Musk got it wrong here. I do think actually Bellingcat's findings about the shooter having white supremacist views and certainly having white supremacist tattoos, I think that's confirmed by other sources. So it's not just Bellingcat here. But I do think Elon Musk was right in questioning overall the source, Bellingcat, and saying that they do psyops because, as we reported endlessly at the Grayzone, that's what they do. They do psyops on behalf of their NATO state partners and their NATO state funders and the spook firms that also fund them as well. And so many established media voices rose to Bellingcat's defense. They were outraged that someone would dare question their integrity. Timothy Snyder of Yale, Jake Tapper of CNN, Chris Hayes of MSNBC. But what unites all of these elite pundits and academics is that all of them, whenever they sing Bellingcat's praises, all of them without fail omit the fact that Bellingcat is funded by NATO states. If you read about Bellingcat in regime media and NATO state media, New York Times, Washington Post, they never mention that Bellingcat is funded by NATO states. And that's because they have to preserve this false image of Bellingcat being this, dogged, independent, open source investigative outlet, when in reality, as we've shown multiple times, they're a NATO troll farm. And to underscore that point, here's what their own state partners say about them. And I shared this on Twitter this week, and it went kind of viral. And this is what prompted a reply from Elon Musk. So this is a document put out by the Zinc Network, which is a UK state government contractor. And it's from a report that they did that was leaked. And this is what they say about Bellingcat. So this is Bellingcat's own partners saying the following, quote, Bellingcat was somewhat discredited both by spreading disinformation itself and by being willing to produce reports for anyone willing to pay. So it's not just us that says that Bellingcat is a propaganda outlet on behalf of its NATO state sponsors. It's Bellingcat's own NATO state sponsors saying the same thing, but in private. And when I pointed that out, Elon Musk responded to that. And this triggered a freak out from Bellingcat and its supporters and blah, 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 blah. But that's, again, it's not just us saying this. This is what's admitted in private. And it's so funny. And let me show you how this was one of my favorite things ever. So when I pointed this out, it got a lot of retweets. I think over 3,000 retweets. And Elon Musk responded to it. So here is how Elliot Higgins of Bellingcat coped with this disclosure from his own NATO state partner. He basically accused his own British NATO state partners of falling for Russian propaganda. This is what he says. Well, so when this first became public, and he's talking about the report that I cited, when this first became public, I was obviously appalled as it doesn't represent Bellingcat accurately. So I asked for the basis of this claim. I was told a third-party organization who put together this report based it on a Sputnik article and a claim by a Russian journalist.
Well, that's what you were told. It must be true.
So isn't it amazing? His own state partner says that his organization spreads propaganda. And how does he respond? He accuses them of being duped by Russia. So basically, everything is Russia's fault, including his own state partners privately saying that he's a fraud.
All
And what's
roads lead to Russia.
All roads lead to Russia.
Even if they go through the Integrity Initiative, the Zinc Network, and the Open Information Partnership, which are all British intelligence operations that were involved with Bellingcat.
The whole point of that report that I quoted from is to identify the best partners for countering Kremlin disinformation. I'm quoting it. That's the stated purpose. So he wants to argue that a report that is based around trying to find people to counter Kremlin propaganda was somehow duped by Kremlin propaganda into disparaging his organization and saying that they spread disinformation. It's so funny. Of course, he doesn't say who told him this, because he's lying, of course, and that's what he does. And unfortunately, he's lied about much more consequential issues, including war crimes in Syria, which Bellingcat constantly covers up for.
Yeah. So we've done a lot on Bellingcat. We've done so much on them that you could just go to our YouTube channel and search Bellingcat, go to our site and search Bellingcat. I don't even know where to start, but just very quickly. And I did Bellingcat's origin story. We have a whole video where Aaron and I go through the origins of Bellingcat from 2013, when Brown Moses was an anonymous blogger trying to discredit Seymour Hersh and anyone who questioned the Syrian dirty war, who was really named Elliot Higgins. And at the same time, he was about to take a job with a military contractor called Alan Vanguard. And then the BBC magically summoned this fundraising campaign to make Elliot Higgins into a full-time open source hero. And they created Bellingcat with the help of Jigsaw's Yasmin Green, who's a spook herself, and was getting all this promotion and all these awards. MH17 was their first big break, and they essentially, it just felt like the joint investigative team was echoing everything Bellingcat said, and they were just using them to make it seem independent. Then from there, they moved back to Syria. There's so much we could go into, but the basic gist of it is that the National Endowment for Democracy, the U.S., the regime change arm of the U.S. government, which does what the CIA did covertly, now in overt fashion, according to one of its founders, Alan Weinstein, is Bellingcat's top funder. They're also funded by Adam Smith International, the UK contractor, which helped fund and sponsor jihadists inside Syria in a major scandal. They're sponsored by Chemonics, the contractor that helped supply jihadist ancillaries like the Syrian white helmets that Bellingcat was defending. And they've been involved in the Open Information Partnership, which was an initiative of, I believe, the UK Foreign Office, essentially UK intelligence, cut out along with the Zinc Network. And we've seen Bellingcat named in leaked documents that we reported on, participating in election training for pro-NATO candidates in places like North Macedonia.
Yep.
Really random. They were literally sent there by the UK at the initiative of the UK Foreign Office. So, I mean, they're not an independent organization, and yet Eric Toller, one of their main figures, is working with the New York Times, and Christian Trebert was hired by the New York Times. He directs their digital investigations. So people who are spun out of the US and UK spook factory are now at the New York Times. So what does that make the New York Times? And so Elon Musk is fundamentally correct that Bellingcat is involved in psychological operations on behalf of Western NATO states. They're not an independent agency. Everything they do and say needs to be taken with extreme suspicion and heavy scrutiny. And as I said on Twitter, it's great that Elon Musk is saying this now, even if maybe he's not intervening in the right situation. If the right and these, kind of pro-Trump forces that have cohered around Musk had this understanding of Bellingcat back in 2018, when the Duma deception occurred, when jihadist bandits in the Damascus suburb of Douma staged a chemical attack in order to frame the Syrian government and provoke missile attacks by the UK, US, and France. I think they could have actually caused some serious problems in Washington if Donald Trump had sought to go ahead with that. There was really no pushback from the right at that point, not much. And there would have been this time.
Yep.
You know, and it was, of course, Bellingcat was doing the attribution that justified those attacks in a really suspicious way, because Elliot Higgins tweeted a picture of the cylinder in Douma and then deleted the tweet and then tweeted it again, and the cylinder was moved so that it matched the official story, which suggests that he may have even been in touch with white helmets on the ground, telling them, move it over 180 degrees, bruh.
Yeah. Let's go through this because this is really important. I mean, we've talked a lot before about how Bellingcat's been used to smear the OPCW whistleblowers. And we've exposed at the Grayzone that they took part in a scam where they published this fake letter that they said was sent to the key dissenting inspector, Dr. Brendan Whelan. They accused Dr. Whelan of concealing this letter because this letter exposed all of his claims as being wrong. In reality, as we exposed at the Grayzone, this letter that Bellingcat said was sent to Whelan didn't exist. It was a scam, and we exposed it. And then we exposed that actually in the process, Bellingcat had relied on a external author that they copied from without acknowledging that. So we've exposed that and talked about that a lot. But this part of this we have not talked about very much. So let's go through it. So right after Douma happens, Higgins, the founder of Bellingcat, tweets out this picture from the scene, the apartment building where all those bodies were filmed in Douma, of a gas cylinder above a hole on the roof. And so you see that first pic there. Here's a close-up of it. There's the cylinder, right? And you look at the way the cylinder is tilted. Just look at the markings, because you're going to see soon that change. So this is a picture tweeted out by Elliot Higgins of the cylinder. But there's a problem with it. The nozzle of the cylinder doesn't match. It's not placed properly in a way that would make it easier for the gas to fall through. So what happens? Higgins deletes this picture, and then shortly afterwards, the White Helmets upload a new video from the scene, and the cylinder has been rotated. It's been rotated 180 degrees to make it look more plausible that gas could have come through from that. So this is direct manipulation of the alleged crime scene. And again, we'll just compare the cylinders one more time. So this is after, and this is before. So notice how the cylinder, this is the one that Higgins tweeted out, is rotated this side, and all of a sudden after he deletes it, it gets rotated 180 degrees. So basically, I think the reason Higgins deleted that picture is because he was told that the nozzle was facing the wrong way when they staged the cylinder, and they needed to correct it. And that's why this image was then put out. And this is the one that the public has been left with. So Higgins was complicit in a manipulation of the crime scene, or at least he was tied to people who were manipulating the crime scene. And then he was caught in another lie where Bellingcat was saying for a long time on their website that they partnered with the OPCW, right? They were partners with the OPCW. And the OPCW was among a long list of Bellingcat's partners, right? But then the Douma cover-up happened, and it was revealed that the OPCW had covered up its own investigation. And among the findings that came out that were suppressed was that, the OPCW was relying on these, unspecified external experts to help basically give credence to the claim that Syria was guilty of a chemical attack. And there was speculation that Bellingcat was one of these supposed fake experts. And so all of a sudden, when all this materialized, Bellingcat mysteriously erased from its website its claim that it partnered with the OPCW. And Higgins said, oh, this was a copy and paste error. We never partnered with the OPCW. What happened was we copy and pasted this from a list. We fixed it now. So then when Bellingcat put out its corrected list, the only partner missing from a previous list that of a list of names was the OPCW. So basically the only error it had made, we're supposed to believe, was that it partnered with the OPCW. It's the exact same list of partners, only the OPCW was missing. So what really happened was it became embarrassing for it to be known that Bellingcat was partnering with the OPCW because Bellingcat was helping the OPCW cover up what happened in Douma. So Bellingcat had to cover up its own role in the cover up as well. And that's just one of many deceptions that they've been caught on, and they've never answered for it. I've sent them so many queries about their whole role in that fake letter that tried to smear Dr. Whelan. They'd never respond to any of my questions. They've never answered any questions about the cylinder being rotated, as far as I know, except Higgins may have said he deleted it because he didn't want to dox the person who appeared in that picture. But the person who appears in that picture, you can't see their face. It's just their legs. So that's a complete lie as well. So these are scam artists who have been involved not only in covering up a cover-up, but covering up a war crime, because we still don't know how those people in Douma died. What we do know is that it was not a chemical attack by Syria, which means most likely that this was a massacre by sectarian death squads.
Yeah, I mean, we could just go on and on with Bellingcat. Some of not everything they say is a lie. Okay, not everything they say is disinformation, but everything they do is influenced by their Western state backers and the contractors they work with. They're just not an independent organization, and they constantly try to attack us and discredit us. And then they have these figures like Jake Tapper or Timothy Snyder defending them, because what do Jake Tapper or Timothy Snyder? I mean, these are basically, Jake Tapper is just essentially a court reporter for the regime. And I don't mean like he's reporting at night court, like he's reporting at the King's Court. And Timothy Snyder, he is a court academic who is like ironing Zelensky's one green shirt when he's not pumping out Holocaust revisionism, equating the Soviet Union with Nazi Germany in books like Bloodlands. He's literally raising money for Ukrainian military equipment. So these are the figures defending Bellingcat. They're completely tied to the regime. They themselves are not independent in any true sense. And we'll talk about Jake Tapper more in the next segment. But the point is, Elon Musk essentially got it right about Bellingcat. And just a quick note about the shooter. White supremacist is what everyone's debating now, but initially they were debating whether he was in fact the shooter. So kind of moving a goalpost there. He appears to be the shooter, and he was a deeply disturbed person who appears in these photos with swastika and SS tattoos. Were those photoshopped? Is that the argument? Because if he was wearing those tattoos, those are Nazi tattoos. If a Ukrainian soldier is wearing those tattoos, we call them a Nazi. Just because he's of Mexican heritage doesn't mean he can't be attracted to Nazism. In fact, Mexico has in its past, read Inside the League by John Lee Anderson. It's about the World Anti-Communist League. There are photos of Mexicans sig heiling. They had Mexican fascist organizations that were anti-communist. I've spent a lot of time in Mexico. I've been to almost every state in that country. I've seen swastika graffiti. Some people consider it just kind of like a badass symbol. So the debate around that shooting is really stupid, and it's basically it's dancing around the real issue, which is why should a psychotic nutcase like that have access to high-powered military-grade weaponry? So that's my little comment on that. But I mean, I'm really glad to see at least some slice of the American population and media culture get wise to what Bellingcat's about and how it's used.